So a couple weeks ago in the comments, somebody made me aware of the fact that we just hit 1.5 million subscribers. I wasn't aware of that until I saw that. So I thought we'd do a special episode to celebrate. I'm going to give some love to a lost art in the music biz, the greatest hits record, but with a twist. Now, back in the day, these compilations were a vital part of our collections, right? I mean, Beatles Red and Blue, Eagles 1971 to 1975, Fleetwood Mac, Queen, Journey, Billy Joel Greatest Hits 1 and 2. We all loved having the hits in one place. But today I've got my picks for the 9 greatest song stories in rock history. I went with 9 because it's my favorite number. I mean, I guess you could call it Professor Rock Greatest Hits episode. That's what I'm getting at. Some of these stories have been told, but today I've dug up some completely new details, and I got to tell you, it was so hard to narrow down thousands of stories to just 9. So maybe we'll have to do a POR Greatest Hits Volume 2. But for this one, I got some great stories. I got the story of the most cursed song in the history of music, written by a trapeze artist who survived a death-defying fall. Plus, there's a story of a band who was trying to record their hit song. They knew it was a hit, but nobody in the band could nail down the tough vocal. So finally, a random kid just watching the session jumped in and tried it, and he blew everybody away. It became a #1 hit, and he wasn't even part of the band. And then there's a story of the teenager who was told by his dad to write the stupidest song ever, and it led to one of the most iconic themes of all time. Let's do this. Hey, music junkies, Professor Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. Make sure to subscribe below and be a part of our process. Remember, a lot of people are telling me they thought they were subscribed, they checked, they got unsubscribed by YouTube or something happened. So make sure to subscribe, make sure to like, share, and comment. Keep our channel going. It's important. We got to keep the music alive. Through the twists and the turns and the highs and the lows of this channel, we just hit 1.5 million subscribers a few weeks ago. Actually, we've added 10,000 subscribers since then. And in celebration of you, the audience, who makes it all possible, all the viewers, I wanted to give you my 9 favorite song stories of all time. Now, some are new and some are old, but the old ones have new details that I've completely gone through. I went down the rabbit hole, and I'm telling you, this is going to be a definitive episode because these stories are so good, and they're actually bigger and better than they've ever been before, the ones that you haven't, or that you have heard. There's a lot that you haven't, so let's get into it. So kicking things off with our POR Greatest Hits Countdown, coming in at number 9, lucky number 9, I got the story of Iron Butterfly's In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. You know, some of rock's greatest songs come together when nobody is paying attention at all, and In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida is proof of that. The song was written by the band's organist Doug Ingle one night in 1967, fueled by an entire gallon of Red Mountain wine. And by the time he'd finished the bottle, Ingle had written the song and was ready to share with drummer Ron Bushy. He played through it, he sang the lyrics, but there was just one small problem. Ingle was so far gone when he sang the phrase "in the Garden of Eden," what came out of his mouth was a muddled mess that sounded something like In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, right? But Bushy dutifully transcribed those lyrics, wrote down exactly what he heard. When they sobered up and looked over what they had made, the line, it made absolutely no sense. But nobody wanted to fix it. It sounded cool. The garbled title sounded better than the actual real one. It was exotic, it was mysterious, and it perfectly was in tune with the era. Eastern spirituality, of course, was having a major cultural moment at the time, with the Beatles heading to India and the Stones weaving Indian instruments into their recordings. You know, all that was happening. See a red door and I want it painted black. In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida fit right into that vibe, and their record label loved it. The song itself was actually written early enough to appear on Iron Butterfly's debut album, Heavy, but the guys ended up holding it for their second record. And what happened in the studio when they finally did record it, it was another crazy story, completely unplanned. While waiting for their producer, Jim Hilton, to show up, the band launched into an extended jam during soundcheck just to help engineer Don Kazali set his levels. What nobody realized, though, was that Kazali had the tape rolling the entire time. And when they finished and listened back, the decision was unanimous. That was the take, this little jam session. It was 17 minutes long. The finished track had everything a progressive rock fan could ever want. Neoclassical organ with Eastern influences, a riff-driven guitar, and a monster 2.5-minute drum solo from Ron Bushy. And that was, of course, followed by an organ solo. I mean, the lyrics are brief and simple, a love song set in the Garden of Eden, but honestly, nobody was listening to this 17-minute track for that poetry. Now, a heavily edited single of under 3 minutes hit the Billboard Hot 100 in August of '68. It did reach number 30, and fittingly, it charted for 17 weeks, 17 minutes. But the real action was on prog radio, where DJs had the freedom to play the full version on FM. Otherwise, listeners who wanted the whole In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida experience had to buy the actual album. They did just that, by the tens of millions. In fact, for a couple of years, a lot of people don't realize it was the biggest selling record ever. All right, coming in at number 8, I got the Tokens with the story of The Lion Sleeps Tonight. You know, before Neil Sedaka became a solo star, he was the lead singer of a doo-wop trio from Brooklyn called the Tokens. However, when Sedaka moved on, Jay Siegel stepped up to front the group alongside brothers Phil and Mitch Margo. In 1961, the three recorded one of the most recognizable songs in pop history. All the kids love it too, The Lion Sleeps Tonight. It's actually a reconstruction of a song called Mbube, which is Zulu for lion. It was originally recorded back in 1939 by a South African singer named Solomon Linda. Now, the Tokens, with new lyrics courtesy of songwriter George David Weiss, they transformed it into something entirely their own. Jay Siegel's soaring falsetto was the centerpiece, of course, and it was genuinely stunning. But it would be the soprano In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida who took the song into the stratosphere with her backing vocals. Now, producers Hugo Peretti and Luigi Creatore, they brought Anita in to record an overdub, a bit of extra texture just to fill out the arrangement. And here's the thing. She was handed the music chart, they ran through it once, and then she just stopped cold. Her part was too low. Anita told them she needed to sing an octave higher. Now, Hugo and Luigi looked at her like she had two heads. They thought it was impossible. They said, "You can't do that." Anita's response, "Well, let's just try it." It was a pretty bold request for a professional studio with 2 seasoned producers. Maybe it wasn't. Turns out Anita, she had a working range of 4 full octaves without even touching her falsetto. She was classically trained and operatically gifted. When she opened up and sang her vocals on that octave higher, the room changed completely. What was supposed to be a simple overdub became the spine-tingling, mystical centerpiece of the entire recording. And even without their permission, she let it flow and it changed everything. But even with Anita's amazing contributions, the band wasn't really that excited about the song. They actually stuck it on the B-side of their single, Tina. When Tina failed to gain any traction, DJs flipped the record over and began playing The Lion Sleeps Tonight instead. It was released in October of '61. The song hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and topped the charts in Canada. The Tokens followed with 3 more top 40 entries over the next decade. Of course, nothing could replicate the magic of The Lion Sleeps Tonight. As for In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, she went on to perform with the New York Philharmonic, appeared in musical theater, and provided the original high-pitched voices for Alvin and the Chipmunks. There you go. All right, coming in at number 7, I got Simple Minds with Don't You Forget About Me. Don't you forget about me. So this unforgettable Breakfast Club track, it was actually written by Steve Schiff and Keith Forsey. The same Forsey who had co-written Flashdance, What a Feeling, and The Heat Is On from Beverly Hills Cop, and produced so many albums, including a lot of Billy Idol's. The pair actually wrote Don't You Forget About Me with both the film and Simple Minds, the band, in mind. So Keith Forsey tracked the band down and he pitched it to him backstage at one of their concerts. He handed lead singer Jim Kerr a cassette after listening to it, though. The band thought it was, a decent demo, but they weren't interested because they write their own material. They still do. They were and still are songwriting purists. And the story. Only thing is, though, Forsey didn't give up so easily. He kept asking him over and over again. But Simple Minds just kept telling him no. This actually happened 6 times. Forsey was determined, but to hedge his bets, he shopped the song around to some other musicians that he thought would be good. There were Cyndi Lauper, Brian Ferry, Cy Kiernan of The Fix, Psychedelic Furs, Billy Idol, whom Forsey had already produced 2 albums for, like I said. No one wanted it, though. It was unbelievable. Here was a surefire hit song ready to go for a John Hughes movie, and everyone was turning it down. So the person who finally broke the deadlock was actually Chrissie Hynde, frontwoman of the Pretenders. Now, at the time, Chrissie was actually married to Jim Kerr. When Chrissie heard the song demo, she loved it. She knew it was an absolute smash. It was actually offered to her, and she considered recording it since everybody had turned it down. She knew it would be a hit, but she was very pregnant at the time, and she couldn't commit to doing a music video for the song. So instead, she pushed her husband, Jim Kerr, to do it. And he said, "No way, Jose." She dug in, and she negotiated really hard. He eventually agreed to at least meet director John Hughes and watch the movie The Breakfast Club. After seeing the story of 5 crazy teens who came together during the Saturday detention, Jim started warming up to the idea, at least.
Because you're letting me?
The Breakfast Club.
Simple Minds agreed to give the song a shot, but they fully expected their record company to hate it and reject it. The band flew Forsey to Scotland, then they migrated to London and recorded the song in just a matter of hours. Finally, once they actually started playing, something clicked. Jim improvised the fired up opening and that breakdown, the la 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 at the end, and it was perfect. Don't You Forget About Me closed The Breakfast Club with Judd Nelson's iconic raised fist and became a defining song of the decade, maybe the defining song.
The Breakfast Club.
The band that said no 6 times recorded their masterpiece, and all because of very pregnant Chrissie Hynde said, "I can't do this, you better do it," and told her husband. That's why we should listen to our spouses. They are significant others, whatever you want to call it. My wife definitely knows best, and Chrissie knew best for Jim. All right, coming in the number 6 spot, I got one of my favorite people in the industry, Mr. Kenny Loggins, with the story behind House at Pooh Corner.
Get back to the house at Pooh Corner by 1.
So I've talked about Kenny a lot on this channel, and for very good reason. He's one of my favorite artists, one of my favorite interviews. It's not just because he gave me my big break. His catalog of music is top tier. And as I've gotten to know him through the years, I've come to know for myself that Kenny is, in his own words, the real thing. So I had to give him a little shout out on the countdown, but it's really because his story is so great.
Never compromise on, and that's a real thing you need in life.
Many, of course, know Kenny as the king of the movie soundtrack. From Caddyshack to Footloose to Top Gun, and again with Maverick. Kenny's a lot more than that, though. He's had an impact on every generation. He connected with baby boomers as part of Loggins and Messina. He did the same with Gen X when he dominated the theaters in the 80s with the soundtrack. And then millennials and Gen Z as one of the co-captains of so-called yacht rock. His music has had a massive resurgence in modern pop culture media for sure.
Back to the days of Christopher Robin and Hood.
And all along the way, Kenny has had so many great stories to tell. For this one, though, I'm going to let Mr. Kenny Loggins himself tell his own story.
Got the call from Disney, the record company did. Can't put it out. We own the Pooh Corner.
A few months later, I got a phone call from John McEwen, and he says, "We can't do that song." I said, what's going on? He said, "Well, we've been inundated with phone calls from the Disney attorneys, and they claim they have a thing called a copyright on that sucker, and so we are ceasing and desisting." And I was really bummed, and this is a true story. And I told my girlfriend, we were going on a date that night, and I said, I'm kind of bummed. I thought I had my first song recorded, and it's not going to happen. The Disney lawyers killed it in the water. And she looked at me and she goes, "Disney lawyers? Let me talk to Daddy about that." I did not know that I was dating the daughter of the CEO of the Disney Corporation. And proving there is a God She took me home to meet her dad, sat on the floor, and I played House of Pooh Corner. Now, I'm 20, maybe, yeah. I'm sure he was looking at me going, no way in hell is anybody ever going to hear this song. So he called the lawyers and said, okay, let him have it.
All right, coming in at number 5 on the countdown, I got the story of how AC/DC and Bon Scott joined forces, and it's unbelievable. So AC/DC formed in November of 73. But for the first year of their existence, something was definitely missing. Malcolm and Angus Young were exceptional musicians, no question. But their original frontman, co-founder Dave Evans, he was missing that dangerous rock energy that the brothers were really after. He was gone before the band found its footing, though. But without the right voice out front, AC/DC was really SOL at this point. At the same time, a singer named Bon Scott was having one of the worst stretches of his young life. Bon had been bouncing between bands for years without anything to show for it. He worked a day job shoveling fertilizer at a plant in Wallaroo, and on the night of May 3rd, 1974, things got dramatically worse in his life. After a heated argument during rehearsal with his band, the Mount Lofty Rangers, Bon stormed out of the Old Lion Hotel in North Adelaide. Completely plastered, drunk as a skunk, he jumped on his motorcycle and he tore off into the night, and he crashed hard. The injuries put him in a coma for actually 3 days. They didn't know if he'd make it for a little while. It kept him hospitalized for nearly 3 weeks. Now, during Bon's recovery, his old friend Vince Lovegrove and Vince's wife took him in, and they gave him some small jobs, putting him posters, painting walls, just to give him something to do. Now, when Bon was well enough to work again, Vince, who was a booking agent, he helped Bon pick up a gig as a driver and a roadie for AC/DC. Vince, who knew the Young brothers, had been telling them for a while that Bon Scott was exactly the singer that they needed. But they weren't convinced. For his part, neither was Bon. But then came a low-key gig at the Pooh Rocca Hotel. After watching the band perform live for the first time, Bon still wasn't sure. In fact, in a first-hand account told by Vince Lovegrove, Bon met the brothers Young backstage after the show, and he told them to their faces that he doubted they could rock at all. They fired back that they thought Bon was too old to rock. So they put each other to the test and had a jam session that very night, through the entire night. And by dawn, both the Young brothers and Bon Scott were convinced that this could work out.
AC/DC.
Now, as it turns out, they could all rock very well indeed. Malcolm and Angus Young had found their new singer, a frontman that would turn AC/DC into one of the greatest bands ever to rock planet Earth. And there's another side of the story that says that he actually just jumped on stage while they were playing, because they were playing instrumentals, and he sang a couple with them, and they were just blown away. Either way, you got the limo driver that rocked the house, and that's a pretty cool story. All right, coming in at number 4. Oh, this is one of my favorite stories we've ever done on POR. It's one of the most haunting themes to ever open a TV show. I've got MASH with Suicide is Painless. In a decade full of upbeat jingles and sing-along sitcom intros, MASH delivered a theme that made you feel everything. Melancholic and serene. The song, which was titled Suicide is Painless, it stood in sharp contrast to the chaos and satire that followed in the actual show. It made it all the more powerful. MASH premiered in 1972 and it had an incredible 11-season run. One of the most acclaimed shows in television history, no doubt. Set during the Korean War, the show followed the staff of a mobile army surgical hospital, and it used humor and humanity to navigate the horrors of war and combat medicine. Led by the irreverent Hawkeye Pierce, the ensemble cast went all in on gallows humor and satire as a survival mechanism.
Fire that weapon. All right. You're fired.
The show's ability to juggle heartbreak and hilarity, just unprecedented. 1 minute you were laughing it up and the next you were choking back the tears. I just watched all of these with my wife and we felt all of this. Through it all, the theme song, it acted as a soul-stirring siren call, telling viewers to take their seats because it was once again time for MASH. I mean, for a lot of us kids when we were growing up, the Gen Xers, it signified that it was time to go to bed. The song Suicide is Painless was initially written for the 1970 MASH movie, actually. The music was created by Grammy-winning composer Johnny Mandel with lyrics by Mike Altman. Now, Mike Altman was the 14-year-old son of film director Robert Altman, who did the movie. In his own words, Robert wanted the track to be the stupidest song ever written, to underscore the movie's message. And at first he tried to write the lyrics himself, but he felt like his 45-year-old brain couldn't come up with anything that was stupid enough. So he actually asked his teenage son Mike to give it a try. How's that for a backhanded compliment, right? Not only took Mike a matter of minutes before he had lyrics down. Through early morning fog I see, visions of the things to be.
Visions of the things to be.
The pains that are withheld for me, I realize and I can see that suicide is painless. It brings on many changes, and I can take it or leave it if I please.
That suicide is painless.
It doesn't exactly sound stupid to me, but hey, Robert liked it and he gave it the go-ahead. Although the lyrics weren't used for the TV version, the instrumental opening perfectly set a tone for the series. Now, Robert Altman later joked that while he only made $70,000 for directing MASH the movie, Mike reaped millions of dollars from the song. How crazy is that? It's not surprising, though. I mean, Suicide is Painless is one of the most instantly recognizable TV themes of all time, and it continues on. All right, coming in at number 3, I did this one in our episode on songs that are cursed, but it was an honorable mention, and I only gave a little bit of detail on it. So this one, I'm going to give you all the detail. Embrace yourselves, because it will really make you wonder if a song can be cursed. The track I'm talking about is Gloomy Sunday, composed by a circus acrobat named Rezshu Suresh. I hope I said that right.
Gloomy Sunday.
So born into poverty in Budapest, Hungary in 1889, Suresh lived a tough life. In the 1910s, he joined a traveling circus as a trapeze artist. By the 1920s, he suffered what should have been a fatal fall during a rehearsal. Somehow he survived, but permanently injured one of his hands in the process. Afterwards, Suresh turned his attention to singing and songwriting and taught himself to play the piano with one working hand. Now, since he couldn't play complex arrangements, Suresh, he primarily composed by whistling his melodies first so he'd get it down. In 1932, while living in Paris as a struggling songwriter, he composed his infamous melody that in English he called "The World Has Ended." At the time, his music career was going nowhere, and the woman he loved had just walked out on him and broken his heart. The song was later paired with tragic lyrics about a man who's lamenting a lost lover and is driven to take his own life. Retitled Gloomy Sunday in 1935, the song was recorded by Paul Kalmar in Hungary. And shortly after, reports began surfacing about a string of people taking their own lives. It was linked to the song, earning it the nickname the Hungarian suicide song. The following year, Gloomy Sunday became an international sensation when the lyrics were rewritten in English. In 1941, Billie Holiday recorded her definitive version of the track, and after that it began to be linked to hundreds of self-inflicted deaths. I mean, victims were reportedly found holding the sheet music or with the record still spinning. It's very, very creepy. Gloomy Sunday would be banned in several countries from there.
Deep of my heart.
Now, from 1942 to 1944, because of his Jewish heritage, Suresh was deported to a German labor camp. Miraculously, he survived. In 1945, after the war, Suresh returned to Budapest, where he discovered he had a fortune in royalties waiting for him in the U.S. But due to the escalating Cold War and travel restrictions, he couldn't leave Hungary to claim that money. Up through the 1960s, Suresh became a fixture at the Kispipa restaurant in Budapest. There he played the piano with his one functional hand every night for decades. And then in 1968, at the age of 78, he made an attempt on his own life, jumping out of his apartment window while the record was playing. But he survived. However, when he was at the hospital, Suresh tragically completed the act by choking himself with a wire used to hold his leg cast in place. Of his sad signature song, Suresh called it a fatal fame, saying, and I quote, "He cried all the disappointments of my heart into the song." Man, you can really feel it when you listen to it. Be careful. All right, we're down to number 2. For this one, I've got one of the craziest stories we've ever told on this channel. It's the most mysterious song of the internet. Now, for 17 years, one song haunted the internet more than any other. No one knew what it was called, and no one knew the name of the band. The only thing that anyone had to go on was a decades-old mixtape cassette. But this unidentified song would spawn communities of diehard sleuths who were determined to crack the case. The story starts back with a teenager named Darius who recorded an unknown track off North German radio onto a cassette tape in the 1980s. He just labeled it "Blind the Wind," his best guess at the opening lyric. He stashed the tape away in his collection, and he forgot about it for decades. Until 2004, when he rediscovered the song and he tried to identify it online. But it came up empty. In 2007, his sister Lydia uploaded a short clip to some song identification sites, and that's where the global search officially began. The song slowly spread across the internet, picking up the nickname "Like the Wind," or the most mysterious song on the internet. Along the way, it just got better and better. By 2019, Reddit communities started forming to solve this mystery. Every lead out there was chased down. A North German radio DJ thought to have played the song in the 80s. He had no memory of it. They thought that that would be the winner, but it didn't to no avail. The German song registry, that came up empty. A couple bands claimed the song was theirs, but none could back it up with any proof. It looked like this mystery was never going to be solved. And I actually did an episode on it. And then a few months later, in November of 2024, there was finally a breakthrough. A user named Marigin1412 was digging through archives from a Hamburg music festival called Horrorfest. There he found a newspaper article referencing a new wave band called Fex from Kiel, Germany. Following that thread, he tracked down one of the former band members, keyboardist and guitarist Michael Herdrich, and he asked if he had any old recordings. Michael, with no idea what was coming, sent over a 3-song demo. One of the tracks was called "Subways of Your Mind." And of course, Marigin recognized it immediately. Michael was told that the song was an internet phenomenon and he had a global following. He was floored. After confirming all this was real, Michael reached out to his former bandmates and together they came forward with proof that it was really theirs. They had original studio recordings, live performance recordings, band photos, and a statement from their former agent. Fex existed from 1983 to 1985. They'd won a talent competition, they'd done a short German tour, and they faded from history from there. Subways of Your Mind, though, would never fade. Now, Subways of Your Mind, for its part, was recorded in 1983, and the band suspects their agent sent it to NDR Radio without their knowledge. On November 7, 2024, nearly 40 years after they last played together, Ture Ruckvart, Michael Herdrich, and Norbert Sierman reunited in Kiel and performed a song on the same radio station where the mystery began. And it's been used in pop culture plenty since, and I've got an interview I'm going to be doing with these guys soon, so look for that. All right, for our number 1 story on the POR Greatest Hits Countdown, I got to tell you, this was a tough one. It was trying to figure out what was the greatest story ever told behind a song. And for me, I've got to choose this one. This one I think is so unbelievable, and a lot of people still don't know it. It makes sense that it's a song from the 60s. I'm telling you, the songs from the 50s and 60s always have really rich stories and details behind them. But I got to give the number 1 to this one. This is my favorite. I think this is the coolest. We're going to go back to the Summer of Love, 1967. Nothing captured that moment, that Summer of Love moment in history quite like Incense and Peppermints by Strawberry Alarm Clock. Incense and Peppermints, the color of time. Strawberry Alarm Clock is a lot more than a one-hit wonder. They have so many great songs. Now, of course, Incense and Peppermints became a #1 hit here and in Canada. It's a stone-cold psychedelic classic and one of the most unlikely success stories in rock history. Incense and Peppermints was never supposed to be the hit. It was originally slated to be a B-side. The band didn't even like the lyrics. I mean, the words were written by John S. Carter, who assembled them using a rhyming dictionary, and the result was something like a psychedelic riddle. Beatniks and politics, nothing is new, a yardstick for lunatics, one point of view.
Nothing is new, a yardstick for lunatics, one point of view.
I guess this is as good as mine of what it means, but somehow it all worked. The musical foundation came from 2 band members, guitarist Ed King, who would later co-write Sweet Home Alabama with Leonard Skinner, and keyboardist and co-founder Mark Weitz. They had the song's instrumental skeleton developed already, but what they desperately needed was someone to sing this thing. Now, all 5 members of Strawberry Alarm Clock took a crack at that lead vocal, but all of them struck out. It was a tough lead vocal, nothing was working. Nobody could make those lyrics stick. So out of sheer desperation, producer Frank Slade turned to a 15-year-old teenager who was a friend of the band. He just happened to be hanging around the studio that day and watching amongst a bunch of other teenagers that were there. This random onlooker, his name was Greg Munford. And when he stepped up to the microphone, something clicked and the whole thing just came together. Everyone was blown away. Munford hit the road with Strawberry Alarm Clock after that, not for a stretch anyway. He performed their biggest hit every night. But when he turned 18, he made a surprising choice. Rather than chase rock stardom, he enrolled at USC to study music composition. He eventually earned a degree in musicology from the University of Chicago. The kid who sang one of the biggest hits of 1967 walked away from the spotlight and he went to class instead. Not exactly the rock and roll ending that we'd all expect or want, but hey, I want to have co-founder Mark Weitz, great guy from Strawberry Alarm Clock, tell the story here.
Our producer said, well, here's the lyrics. Let's see who's going to sing this song. And we're all looking at each other. We went around and they ran the track and everybody tried to sing Incense and Peppermints. You know, there's the lyrics on the music stand. Next, you know, the next guy would come up, he'd sing. Next, we went around the whole room. And he goes, God, nobody just sounds like right for this. A friend of ours, he had his own band, and he was trying to start a band. His name was Greg Munford, Munford. Greg was sitting on, I think he was like 15 and a half years old, or 15, 16, something like that. He was, you know, long hair, sitting on the ground, just listening to the, you know, being quiet, minding his own business, sitting on the floor like a fly on the wall in the studio. He was watching everything. And we said, hey, Greg, why don't you get up there and try it? So there's, you know, the vocal mic right there. Greg gets up there. They do a pass. They run it. We play it back. We all look at each other. Greg sounds the best on this.
He's not even in the band.
He's not even in the band. What are we going to do about this? You know, so we go, hey, Greg, you want to be in the band?
What do you think? These are the best stories that I've ever heard in terms of our 6-year odyssey of this whole thing. What do you think? What are your favorite stories? What do you think is the greatest story in rock history? Now, these are random stories. I mean, there's so many great ones. I just told a couple of great ones last week when we were talking about 1971, how Led Zeppelin wrote the greatest encore song arguably ever with rock and roll by just jamming out. So many cool stories like this, but let me know below, what are your stories? Should we do a volume 2? Should we collect these? It's fun to collect them all in one place like a greatest hits album. So many great stories. Water cooler talk here. Can be the king of the water cooler with these stories, I think. Anyway, let's have a great discussion. Let's share our memories below. And make sure to subscribe, like, share, comment. Let's keep this thing alive. Let's keep the music alive. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.